Thank you, my friends.
33-year-old Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, a social media savvy, self-described democratic socialist, has ridden a wave of anti-establishment sentiment to a shocking victory.
I will be your Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York City.
Last night, Cuomo said he called Mamdani to congratulate him.
Tonight is his night. He deserved it. He won.
Well, you heard that correctly. Zohran Mamdani has shocked the Democratic establishment to its core by beating Andrew Cuomo in the New York City mayoral race. Now, despite being smeared as anti-Semitic, a communist by Republicans and Democrats alike, by the way, Mamdani managed to break through all of that noise to unite a pretty broad coalition of New Yorkers. And we'll get into what that coalition looks like in just a minute. But he also was able to break through look, we'll get into a bit of Zohran Mamdani's, and his name is really difficult to say. I'm not mispronouncing it on purpose. Zohran Mamdani. We'll get into his win and how it's caused like this all-out panic in New York and in the Democratic establishment in just a minute. But first, Cenk, real quick, real concise, just one sentence, initial thoughts.
Down goes Cuomo. Down goes Cuomo. Down goes Cuomo. Our members asked for it, including Bloated Ego on TYT.com. I'm here to deliver, and it is a beautiful moment. The Democratic establishment has suffered a heavy blow, and more blows coming. So it's a great, great moment. We'll dissect what's next in this race.
So since New York City has ranked choice voting, elections work a little differently from what most Americans are used to. So bear with me as I kind of explain the process. Mamdani's support after the first round of vote continuing will remain below 50%. And that means that the race will formally be decided by ranked choice votes that will be announced beginning on July 1st. Now, with 93% reporting in the first round, as you can see from this graphic, Mamdani was leading with 43.5% of the vote. And since he cross-endorsed with Brad Lander, who's a progressive who came third with 11.4% of the vote, he's predicted to benefit more than Cuomo from the next round of counting. So you guys understand how that works, right? So yeah. Andrew Cuomo, who received 36.4%, has already conceded, although his campaign left the door open for a November run on a different party line, which has happened before. I believe that happened in an election, a local election in Buffalo, New York, which was pretty gross and it totally worked. So I would not be surprised if Cuomo tried this. But Mamdani ran on an economically progressive platform. He did not hide the fact that he identifies as a democratic socialist, and he has promoted policies including a rent freeze on all stabilized tenants, tripling the city's production of affordable union-built rent-stabilized homes, making city buses free, raising taxes on the top 1% of earners and corporations, and creating a network of city-owned grocery stores. So he wants grocery stores to be publicly owned instead of privately owned. Now, here's an outspoken critic. He is an outspoken critic of Israel's genocide in Gaza. He's also very critical of Cuomo, but look, Cuomo's supporters repeatedly accused him of being anti-Semitic, specifically because he's been rightly critical of Israel's conduct. And you might have seen, like, there was this viral video featuring a woman confronting him for being anti-Semitic. And I gotta say, the way he handled that was so good. Like, he didn't lose his patience, he was calm, he explained himself. And look, he's unfortunately being accused of the same thing that we get accused of when we tell the truth and show you evidence of what's happening in Gaza. Now, his supporters, Cuomo's supporters, I should say, included Bill Clinton, Mike Bloomberg, Jim Clyburn, and Richie Torres, which tells you everything you need to know about the type of people who wanted Cuomo to win over Mamdani. And amazingly, Politico found that more than 40% of Cuomo's top endorsements by elected officials have come from people who publicly condemned him 4 years ago. It's amazing. Now, just real quick, if you don't remember, Cuomo not only has been credibly accused of gross sexual misconduct by people who worked for him in the past, but he also made the horrible decision to send elderly people who still had COVID back to nursing homes where the virus continued to spread and a lot of elderly people died as a result. I think that story is something that people should not forget about because he messed with people's lives and that wasn't okay. I know that these salacious stories tend to get more attention. And by the way, sexual misconduct should absolutely get the attention, but that doesn't mean you should forget about the other horrible things that Cuomo did as a leader, as the former mayor of New York City. Now, yeah, so Cenk, I know you're chomping at the bit, but I'm gonna make you wait for just one more second. Who voted for Mamdani? If you look at the borough level votes, he beat Cuomo in Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Queens, while Cuomo came out ahead in the Bronx and Staten Island, which that doesn't really surprise me. Staten Island tends to be a little more conservative. But in the Bronx, which of course is represented by AOC, I think, and this is just my guess, there has been more of a concern about disorder and crime and stuff like that in that area. So maybe some of Mamdani's policies as it pertains to policing turned them off. That's just my guess. But his coalition, again, largely consisted of a broad range of people, including white, Asian, and Latino voters in economically and racially diverse areas of the city. Notably, he struggled more in middle class, predominantly Black areas in the Bronx and Southeast Queens, where Cuomo retained strong support from his years as governor. Cuomo also, that's right, he was governor. My bad, I made a mistake earlier. So he was governor. Cuomo also won islands of support on affluent Democratic strongholds like the Upper West and East sides of Manhattan and in Orthodox Jewish enclaves in Brooklyn, where Mamdani's views on Israel alienated some voters. And in a conversation on the Breaking Points / Drop Site live stream last night, Mamdani, communications director, talked about their strategy, how they managed to win, and how they even reached out to they reached out to Trump voters. Interesting. Let's see how that turned out.
After Donald Trump was elected and everybody was in a state of shell shock, what was this about? What happened? What did we do? We said, let's just go ask people. Like, let's go to the hearts of immigrant New York. Let's go to South Richmond Hill. Let's go to Fordham Road. Let's go to working class, immigrant, and Black and brown neighborhoods that swung big for Trump and just ask people, why'd you do it? And we really made a sign that said, let's talk politics. This was 5 days after the presidential election. Stood on the corner and said, let's talk. And we heard again and again and again, I used to have more money in my pocket. Things used to be more affordable. The government is not delivering for me, but there are endless wars around the world, And obviously Trump cynically and disingenuously spoke to those things. He also said cheaper prices end the wars, right? And those are the things that we heard all over the city, especially in those neighborhoods. And when Zohran then said, I'm running for mayor to freeze your rent, make buses fast and free, deliver universal childcare, they said, I'll come back and I'll vote for you. And we are actually seeing that tonight.
So reaching out to people who voted for Trump seems to have worked in this situation. I could be wrong, but that was my read of it. What do you think, Cenk?
Yeah, look, that's of course is true, but that's what people have to understand. Reaching out to listen to them doesn't mean that you have to agree with them on their right-wing policies. Zohran didn't agree with them on any of their right-wing policies. And so, but that doesn't mean that you have to curse at them. That doesn't mean you don't have to talk to them. It means you listen and then you go, okay, let me pitch my ideas to you based on what I heard from you. And let's see if there's an intersection here. And of course there is. Everybody wants lower prices on housing and many other things that he pushed. So we're gonna do a lot of fun things here. We're gonna talk about his strategy and his substance. One of the fun things I'll tell you about is, did I know this was coming? Okay, I love predictions. I'll tell you about that in a second. But first, I want to explain that was a communications director that you just watched for the campaign, Andrew Epstein. And so I think they did a wonderful amazing job with communications, not just in reaching out to Trump voters and seeing what they want. That was a part of it and a good part of it, an important part of it. But much more important was, oh my God, his social media, online media engagement was through the roof, and he was so good at it. He was so good at the debates. So look, I'll tell you what I'm most excited about, which is like two things that I get out of this. Number one, the more the establishment is defeated, the happier I am. So in this case, we're defeating the establishment from the left. That's beautiful. And of all the people to defeat in the establishment, Andrew Cuomo, perfect, right? So, and for me, the thing about Andrew Cuomo that always drove me crazy and is related to this race. He always looks out for his donors. He's always trying to protect the status quo. And some of his top donors were real estate donors. They have been historically, and they were in this race. One group alone gave him $2.5 million. So the real estate industry gave him an enormous amount of money just for this, small and quick mayoral race, right? And then Bloomberg gave him $8.3 million. And I love to see that being wasted. That is so beautiful to see, right? So all of this, keep the status quo, didn't work. We're in a new era. We're just saying, oh, it's okay, I'm the Democratic establishment. I know what I'm doing, and just vote for me. I'm the only one who can win. Not working at all anymore. And I'm super psyched about it, right? So why do I think so, Ron? One, is it because of the district? No, Anna, a big part of AOC's district is also in Queens. I think that a couple of things have changed demographically and culturally in New York and across the country that are, I think, a little important, but then I'm gonna get to the big point. So when I remember when I was involved in the Just Democrat race when AOC won that historic primary, also in New York, right, against Joe Crowley. And in that case, we were rooting for a low voter turnout. We were trying to ambush them, basically. Joe Crowley did not have as much name recognition in that district as they thought he did, and we thought low voter turnout with young, energetic progressives in the district might make the difference, and it did, and that was definitely the right strategy. By the way, run by Shortcut Chakrabarti, who's currently running against Nancy Pelosi in a primary. If he takes her out, oh, good night, Irene. The establishment is wiped out. So go check out Shortcut's campaign and make sure you're helping there. He could be the next Zohran Mamdani. Okay, so now though, those young progressives are a massive force in New York. We didn't need low voter turnout. This was a higher voter turnout election than historically than in the last couple of decades. And it helped Mamdani, did not hurt Mamdani. That means momentum is on our side, okay? So now when you get to the substance of it, okay, now here's where it gets a little interesting, because when I look at the particular policies that he pushed, I'm so curious about them because they're not the ones I would have picked. I'll be honest with you guys, right? And so, but I'm number one, their change as opposed to the status quo. So great, let's try them. Let's try them and see what happens, right? And I'm genuinely curious to see, can he really raise corporate taxes by that much in New York? Will some of them leave or will all of them stay and then thereby disprove the mythology that they're all going to leave? So I'm very excited about that one. I like that one, and I'm curious to see what rate of increase is going to be sustainable, right? That's gonna work, keep the companies there and produce the revenue that we need. He would not back off of the BDS movement against Israel. His strength there was through the roof. I loved it. Okay, so that's my favorite policy that he's got. But I know it doesn't relate much to New York. But so rent control, I've historically think it has problems in the market, but we've got to try to lower the housing prices somehow. Nationally, I think it's by banning private equity from buying residential real estate. That's in our populist plan. In a city, I get why they want to do a rent control freeze. I'm a little worried about how the market dynamics there, but I think it's worth trying and see how it goes. Same thing for school buses, same for free childcare. Can they really do it? Does that make a big difference? And then finally, on defund the police, there's a program to move some of the funding to community service programs. again, I'm very curious, is that going to work? Could it lower crime? Does it increase crime? Obviously, we will give you an honest assessment of that at some point, and we're not gonna play around with the numbers and tell you it worked if it didn't work, or tell you that it didn't work if it did work, right? So we're gonna be fair and honest about that. And I wanna see him try these things, because change is so much better than not changing, and he's trying to address these folks. And that gets to my most important point, which is, guys, we've been asking for change the whole time. And would I have picked a different policy than government-run grocery stores? Definitely, but maybe I wouldn't have won, right? So he picked these policies, they voted for him. So let's give him a shot to run these policies and see if they're brilliant, see if they totally work. And did I see this coming in? No, I didn't. Because I was used to the AOC era, where you had to have low voter turnout, and if you had, the establishment show up in a race this big, that they were gonna, especially with the ads and stuff, I have seen them overwhelm us time and time again. And Zohran was, not running on like mild policies; he was running on pretty aggressively socialist policies. And so, but I think that his strength, whether the New Yorkers agree with those policies, et cetera, we're gonna find out as we go along. But the fact that he was so strong about it and said, yeah, that's right. I'm not backing off my position on Israel, and I'm not backing off any of these policies. That was wonderful to see, and the right strategy.
Okay, I need to jump in, especially when you say you didn't expect this to be the outcome of the race. Well, it turns out that Andrew Cuomo's top donor also didn't expect this to be the outcome. And this is amazing. So just bear with me as I read this. This was reported by the New York Times. As donors try to assess their next moves in the mayoral race, one of the biggest donors to Andrew Cuomo's super PAC, the investor Mark Gorton, said he is likely to back Mamdani. That is because of the support that Mamdani had gotten from Brad Lander, who Gorton said he ranked first. I feel like people misunderstood my $250,000 for Cuomo for real enthusiasm, he said in an interview. It was basically, oh, looks like Cuomo is coming back. We don't want to be shut out. Let's try to get on his good side. That's kind of how things work with Cuomo. It's sad political pragmatism. I wish we lived in a world where those sort of things were not useful things to do.
Yeah, that's so telling.
It's amazing.
First of all, I look forward to giving somebody $250,000 just because I'm not enthusiastic about them. Like, wow, what a stunning amount of money to give when you're not enthusiastic. Okay, so I hope he's enthusiastic about Mamdani, because that might be a decent number. But look at the kind of corruption that Andrew Cuomo ran. And this is very true of Cuomo and the Clintons. They would make a list, and if you didn't bribe them, you were gonna be in a lot of trouble. And if you did bribe them, then you were on the good guy list, and you were gonna get a goodie, not from Cuomo, but from the taxpayers.
Isn't that extortion?
Of course it is. I mean, but it's bribery, it's extortion, it's all these things.
So gross.
But the Supreme Court made it all legal. So they're like, oh, it is a campaign contribution. I am speaking to you. So look, it's interesting how quickly Cuomo's donors have given up, how quickly Cuomo gave up, because technically Mamdani hasn't won yet. It's 40, he's at 43.6, he's got to get to 50 so that this is the only round of voting, right? And we think he's gonna get to 50 because of the Lander votes and maybe others. But man, Cuomo was like, forget it, I give up right away. Okay, which is great to see. But don't get too excited about that. Anna's definitely right about that race in upstate New York and how the establishment always comes back. And not only in this case do you have the pro status quo, pro corporate, pro real estate, pro donor community that is gonna come in like a bulldozer into the general election race, but you also have the Israel First community that's gonna come in, okay? And I'm super proud of the Jewish community in New York that was not shaken by the false accusations of anti-Semitism. There's 1 million Jewish Americans in New York, okay? And a Muslim American just won the Democratic primary in that city. So love you guys. way to stay strong, way to all be Americans and not buy into the gaslighting and the propaganda. But they're gonna be back in the general election, and it is going to be on steroids when the neocons, et cetera, hit Mamdani.
A final thing that I'll say about Mamdani's win and the fact that he appears poised to win in, the end of this election cycle, he front-loaded the economic policies. Okay, he sure would comment on some of the social issues in the country. Obviously, he commented on foreign policy as well as it pertains to what's happening in the Middle East. However, he front-loaded economic policies. And that's what matters to most Americans, especially in a city like New York, where the cost of living is astronomical. And reaching out to people who voted differently, who didn't vote for Democrats, who voted for Trump in the last election cycle is so important because even if you can't persuade them, you at least get an understanding of where that base is at, what it is about Trump that persuaded them to vote for a man like that. And again, for everyone who denies that, Trump's faux economic populism is what persuaded people to support him, I think it's pretty clear that in reaching out to these Trump voters and talking about the economic policies that Mamdani wants to champion, who's able to bring some people over onto his side. And so that's how you win. It reminds me of what Trump did in the last presidential election when he spoke before a conference of libertarians who booed him. They totally booed him. Everyone on the left was clowning on him. But I saw it differently because to me, that was Trump going into hostile territory, reaching out to voters and trying to make his case. That's how you win.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.